Hey, my guy Pete, how you doing tonight?
Hey, what's up, Bruce? I can't complain. So my local group's doing a nice white elephant tomorrow, so I got some packs to share, and
Oh,
I don't know what people are bringing, but it's gonna be fun to see. That's why we love this game, right? It's the community, really.
oh
So
yeah,
it's gonna be
absolutely.
nice. Yeah,
I was excited because I got to participate in a Secret Santa exchange through CardSphere, which is
that's really
we're not
cool.
sponsored. We're not sponsored by CardSphere.
But maybe one day, you
CardSphere,
know?
you could
Yeah,
sponsor us, though. We would love you. But but I got to go drop off my Secret Santa gift for
nice.
my Secret Santa person. So again, same idea. The idea of like community
Mhm.
being good, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
So a really cool communal-based format that I learned about recently. It's basically like Two-Headed Giant,
Uh
and
huh.
I played a version of it, but didn't actually know that it had a formal name now. It's
Okay.
called King. It's called Kingdoms. So
Okay. How does this work?
it's usually 5 players. You can do 4, and you can do more. But basically, everybody's assigned a role at the beginning of the game. So you got the king, who, if he or she or whatever, whatever they're playing, if they are the last person standing and they don't die, they win the game. They don't have to actually kill everybody, they just have to survive. You've got knights, you got a knight who protects the king, and if they're able to protect the king and be the last 2 people standing, then they both will win the game.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the bandits who are trying to take down the king, and then you've got the joker or jester who's trying to do something stupid on the side, like either kill themselves as fast as possible or complete a side quest or something before the game ends. So I wanted to eventually modify some of the rules because I think we could totally do this in a little crazy way. But well, we can talk about that on a future episode.
That
Basically,
sounds like
it's a really,
fun.
really, really fun way to spice up Commander a little bit because you have a
Yeah.
little bit hidden objectives. Nobody knows who anybody else is, um, and everybody's at a little bit of a higher life total. So it can play for some really fun games, and we'll feature that later again on the show with more details. But I think it gave me more ideas. I think of like what kind of cards I could play, especially if I'm playing this kind of format where it's not
Hmm.
necessarily about winning as fast as possible or comboing off or killing people systematically. Because if you target somebody who you think is a threat, but they're actually like the king and you're like the knight, and you both lose the game. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's pretty cool how you have to politic your way through it, and then also figure out like who's who as you go through the based on their game actions and what they decide to do.
Right. I've played something similar where it was like there's two kings, like one on either side, and they each have a knight protecting them.
Yeah, and
And
you go
you win.
from side to side. Yeah, we did that with some of my local buddies. Like you kill one king and then you move to the next, and then it's like 3-on-1
No,
eventually.
it was like so. You the kings know who they are. Then two of the other players are knights, and they are helping one of the kings. But the king doesn't know that they're who they work for. So if you are clever, you can be a knight for the opposing king and trick the other guy. And then there's a fifth player who's a bandit and who's looking ostensibly to kill everybody at the table. So not dissimilar to what you're presenting. And it does change the game significantly and in a pretty cool way to sort of make it a fun and
Okay.
interesting new experience. So pretty cool stuff. And yes, it would definitely force card evaluation to be different because things that are just generically good could just end your king and then you lose. And that's not cool. So that's pretty neat. I like that. I haven't heard that one explained out. And yeah, I think it's worth exploring on another show. I think that'd be really neat to talk about.
All right. Yeah, and let's get to what the people paid for. And what's the first card that you got today?
All right. So tonight, I always am interested on trying to make sure our mana bases are affordable. I know that you and I have talked, at length about the fact that
Mhm.
um, mana is the number one reason that games of Commander are expensive because you end up wanting to play the optimal mana base. Duskmourn gave us a really budget friendly and interesting option to add to our mana pools because the problem with most of the common mana cycles, the two color, like the guild gates or the life gain lands and all that stuff, is they always come into play tapped, which
Right.
is really a drawback writ large. And so the Duskmourn ones have a clause where, in the late stages of the game, if somebody can be at 13 life or less, they come into play untapped, which is actually a really big boon because at the late stages of the game, you absolutely need your mana to come into play untapped.
So this might be better than some of the other conditional lands that we had. Like some of the ones that used to be rares that have been downshifted.
Right, like the fast lands?
Like the fast lands, right? The scry lands, even like scry is valuable sometimes in like specific, but I feel like sometimes it's if you're playing more aggressively, you just want that land to come in untapped, and you'd rather have that option where these lands restrict you in the sense of obviously you can't ever have them come untapped unless you're playing like Spelunking or Amulet of Vigor, right? So I like that it represented every color combination. I'm looking at them now, and I don't think they're missing any of them, and that's pretty cool because a lot of color combinations like Jeskai has awkward mana bases a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
Grixis sometimes has awkward mana bases. It might allow someone, instead of having to run an extra rock, they could just run a land instead, depending on what they're doing. And it doesn't really feel bad to play it on the first few turns of the game where, I mean, even if someone playing Sylvan Library, right? Someone's being really, really aggressive with their life total. That land might be the difference in winning a game or stealing a game from somebody. So I think I always invested in lands first, historically when I was picking up cards. If I saw lands that I wanted, because a wise man once said, "The lands make the deck," and I always repeat that in my head because there's even the pain lands. Sometimes it kind of sucks to play them in this particular kind of deck. They just feel awkward because you're always getting pinged for one. Where this might be an alternative to even that, because it only comes in tapped once and just taps for one or the other without any other drawbacks.
Right.
But again, it depends. It depends on what your pod's playing. It depends really on, are you willing to even entertain that when you could just play a Evolving Wilds and just shuffle your deck and use it later? But again, I don't know. It just depends on I guess how you view the sort of colors and the splits and the pips in your deck, right?
Just anecdotally, I was playing this with some friends, and I had the opportunity to have it come. I drew it in the late stages of the game, and two of my opponents had their life total under 13, which wasn't through any particularly aggressive anything. It just sort of happened. They attacked a couple of times. They paid some life for their fetch land or their whatever. Next thing you know, their life total's pretty low. And I ripped this land and I played it untapped, and my opponent goes, "Hey, that comes into play tapped." I'm like, "No, it doesn't, because any one of you could have 13 life or less, and it comes into play untapped." To which he stopped, he read it, and he goes, "By golly, you're right." So it's like one of those things where it can surprise people in the late stages of the game as it comes into play untapped. And I think that's probably why I value it ahead of things like the temples, which I'll be honest with you, I think I've been cutting more and more. Even if they're labeled as rares, I think I'd rather play this because of the potential for it to be an untapped land more often than not.
I really dislike, and this is a hot take, I really, really dislike all of the bounce lands. I think they
that is a hot take.
I think a lot of people overvalue them in specific kinds of decks, like Control and some of these other ones that might need an extra pip of mana or two. But I just never like them. I'd rather just play a basic at that point and just play my stuff on a curve instead of having to rationally think about like bouncing a land back after using it. I get it, like the extra mana might be useful like maybe 3 out of the 10 times. I don't know what the math would be, but mathologists, get them out here.
That's an interesting take, and I think that's worth exploring another night. Because I do think
I would rather play this land than play a bounce land, if that makes sense.
Okay, there we go.
I would rather play this land if I had an option. Normally, I would just play basics anyway and just play some sort of fetches or whatever, to shuffle the deck a little bit. And also, I guess my pips aren't as greedy sometimes. Like, I rarely play cards with more than 2 pips of a color. So maybe that's another
Oh,
consideration. You know what I mean?
oh, you haven't succumbed to greed yet. I see.
Oh,
Okay.
I have gotten really frustrated and then just pivoted back. So there's an evolution of this. You know, there's
Right.
certain times where I'm playing a 3 red pipped card, and Bruce is like, "Why are you playing this card?" I'm like, "Because the card's good," and you're like, "No, it's not." So fair enough.
All
All right,
right.
I want you to play these against me because I don't have any of them, and I'd like to see how they work,
Absolutely.
especially for
I
six
will
cents. I
happily.
mean, terrific.
Yeah, they're pretty budget friendly. All right, what do you
All
got
right,
first tonight?
all right. I got a budget-friendly board wipe. Okay.
Oh boy. Okay, go
So
for it.
this is Forced March. It's an X spell, 3 black and an X sorcery. Destroy destroy all creatures with mana value X or less.
Oh man. Can I just say I am so in for this? I like this. Okay, so folks, you can't see this card. We'll put the link in the show notes. This is from Mercadian Masks. This is like 1,000,000 years old. But on top of it, anything a board wipe where I can control what gets wiped is got so much appeal because if you play some big swole commander, nothing is more frustrating than having your board get wiped and you lose everything. Well, what if you could wipe away all the little nonsensical trash that's in the way, stopping you from attacking, and then you get to attack in with your big honking, thumpers? And I'm like that just screams all that I want to do with my life. Like I have a Belby deck that wants to do this so much that it hurts, and so
Sure. Yeah, because you're
I'm
eating up
like,
the big fatty, and then I get
yeah.
what you're saying.
So I like this card immensely and the fact that I have control over it. It's not like whether or not things are tapped or untapped or odd or even or it's just like no, I want everything that's 4 or less to disappear. Go now. And I spend the mana and it goes bye-bye.
This does not care about stats either, which is great. Because how frustrating is it when someone plays a creature that has like 6 or 7 toughness and you just can't get around it? Or,
Yes. Yeah.
you could just play this for 3 and just wipe all the tokens out too.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's like perfectly reasonable for a card. You could do X's too and slow down like on turn 5. Maybe somebody has 3 mana dorks out. And you're like, all right, well, I need to slow them down a bit and balance out the playing field a little bit. X's too. I mean, boom. All the 2 mana, 1 mana dorks are.
I had not thought about the wiping of all the tokens because token strategies just pretty much run rampant.
Permeate, they are all over the place.
Yeah.
And it says mana value X or less. So that's really nice because, again, it gives you even more of a rope where a lot of these say, like, destroy each that are X or more. Or, like, there's a bunch of board wipes that are, like, mana value 3 or less or mana value 3 or greater, right? There's a bunch in white that do that sort of fixed effect. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to slot this in.
I think
that needs some sort of interaction.
Can I ask you a question? And maybe this is for the judges more than us. So, does a morph creature have a mana cost, like a mana value?
Actually, I don't actually think so because you're playing it face down as a nothing creature with no mana cost, and you're morphing it later. It doesn't see the mana cost on the field.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, right? So this could just hose the new disguise or morph or whatever strategy.
It's 3 mana. That's right, because you pay 3 and then you put it down.
Okay, so you still.
Still, I mean, 3 mana to wipe a bunch of those morph creatures that you don't know what they are. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I like
especially
this.
with all of the disguises and all that. Yeah, it's very reasonable to have. Like someone plays their slick shot show off, and you're like, oh, what is that creature?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Pete, why is this only in 673 decks?
Nobody knows about it, I feel. That's my theory. It's just nobody knows about the card. Just
then.
Plain and simple. So 680, what was it? 680?
673 decks.
So we're going to be 674 and 75.
Indeed, you're right. There we go. That's
Very good.
oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. What do
All
you
right.
got first? I recognize this card from Standard actually, so I'm glad that you're
Yeah.
featuring this one.
So this is a card. So I was fooling around on Arena with Scrawling Trawler. I think it's like the 3 mana. Whenever your opponent draws a card, they take a damage. And I'm like, oh, how can I make my opponent draw a card and take damage? And I got this particular spell. So this is Long River's Pull, and it's blue for instant. It says gift a card, so you give your opponent a card. So counter target creature spell. If the gift was promised, instead counter target spell. So at its base, this is an Essence Scatter, which many times, I don't know, 6 out of 10 times, you want to counter your opponent's big scary creature. That's cool, but the fact that it has the modality to be used to blow up or stop something else seemed like it has appeal to me. I kind of like this.
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
No, I think this card is actually really solid. I think it's better than some of the other counter spells out there that people heavily play, like Make Disappear or any of the like Arcane Denial. I think Arcane Denial is garbage. I'm going to feature that on the show because it is such a tumultuous like thing for me to see someone play. Like somebody played that against me, and I ended up winning the game because of it later, like 2 turns later, because they gave me 2 cards. You know what I mean? So,
all right.
Anyway, we'll feature that another time because that's another card I want to just poke holes in. But this, I mean, man, like you give the opponent that doesn't. Maybe you give your buddy in that situation the card, or you're playing political favor at the same time. Like say player A has this really threatening thing, and you're like, I promise you, player B, I'm gonna take care of it. I'm gonna counter it, but you, and you get to draw a card. It's like, all right, well now, I'm untouchable for like a turn,
Right.
potentially.
Yeah.
This is not bad. This is not bad actually. Again, the 2 blue is really the only like downside of this card. Like anything else, like counterspell, but even then, counterspell. I mean, I play counterspell in every blue deck I own, so it makes sense. I mean, even with 2 blue, you're gonna usually have blue open if you're playing blue. I would think, especially if someone's top decking. Like, man, even if you make the person you're countering draw a card, maybe they're not gonna try to mercilessly try to like eliminate you from the game after that.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I found this card and I was like rummaging through a box of stuff and I'm like this might be good. Like I am going to put it in decks, and I think your comparison to Arcane Denial has a lot of merit because of the fact that giving somebody 2 cards is a huge drawback to Arcane Denial.
I get it, like they get a card too from countering, but at the same time, not to get too much in the weeds with this card, I disdain full stroke. I absolutely disdain full stroke that card. Like I don't like the card. I think card wasted slot. I think this card replaces that card outright. There's so many 2 mana blue cards now that counter something with some sort of drawback. I think this one has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, out of, and that's a hot take. But like I'm just thinking about all these counter spells that I play, like the one from the one from New Capenna that gives you 2 treasures, but it's only counter target non-creature spell.
An offer you can't refuse.
It's a CDH special.
Yeah.
But again, this card might be better in certain decks in certain situations because you're only gifting them a card, you're not gifting them 2 mana to potentially play more things. And you can pick who gets the card. That's the big thing, is like if there's 3 players in that game, someone's super far behind, I don't care that I'm going to give the player that's the furthest behind a card if they're not doing anything that game.
Yeah,
that
no, for sure.
So yeah, it's a grand equalizer. And this next card though, this card's really weird, man. But I want to poke hole. I want to see what you think.
Ooh, okay, go for it. Let me see.
All right, this card's from Prophecy, another really old set. Dual Nature, 4 colorless, 2 green enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature enters, its controller creates a token that's a copy of that creature. Whenever a non-token creature leaves the battlefield, exile all tokens with the same name as that creature. When dual nature leaves the battlefield, exile all tokens created with dual nature.
Okay. So, I am predisposed to not like this. All right, just being perfectly transparent.
Why don't you like the card? Being perfectly transparent, why don't you like the card?
I look at this as a 6-mana enchantment that does not impact the board in a meaningful fashion in the turn in which you play it, and I go, in what world are we playing right now? However, let's conceive of a world or of a situation in a game where you can do this. You have an opening, you can stick this enchantment. What are we doing with it if we stick it? And so my first inclination is this, because every creature that you play subsequently with this makes a token copy of it. So if I have one Oracle Moldiah, now I have 2. And I have extra land drops that I can make out of my hand, and I can go ham. All right? So that's one avenue to take it. The dilemma to that approach is that if my first Oracle of Moldiah dies, now I have 0 Oracle of Moldiahs. And now I am sad. Now, I'm the sort of person who likes to play tokens. The populate mechanic is the only avenue that I can immediately see where it plays in. So I make my Oracle of Moldiah, dual nature makes me a duplicate of it, and now I can pull up populate and now I have 3 Oracle of Moldiahs, and I can do all the lands ever for a million years. And
that's fair.
But I also think at that point I'm living in magical Christmas land.
I got three options for you.
All right, go help me out.
Menu of options. The first one is there's a bunch of the new frogs, right?
Okay.
So there's this card called Dour Portmage.
Dour Portmage, yes. Okay.
Right. Whenever one or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, draw a card. So it triggers every time, and it could trigger twice.
So whenever one of your creatures leaves the battlefield, now would be exiled, Dour Portmage doesn't care, sees it, triggers, you draw cards.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, weirdly enough, some sort of frog tribal, bounce your things back to hand, recast them, sort of silliness, or because you could abuse
that's the
triggers.
That is it.
Wait, hold on. There's two more answers. Okay. You got Enchantress. You got Enchantress builds, right? You got your Sithis decks, which is more like a degenerate way to do it, where you're double triggering your Cetesian champions, you're double triggering your Sithis, you're double triggering any sort of card that cares about something entering that creates a lasting effect. You could do it in an aggro deck with a Gruul deck, where you're buffing creatures when they enter. They get +X+0 or something for the power of a creature that enters. And finally, you could do it the stacks way that I would do it, and you would play all the cards that say when a creature enters, sack a creature. And then you would just keep recurring a creature, so, nobody has anything, and that's just how it goes.
Okay, so in that scenario, you're putting it in Marin, and you're making everybody cry. Okay.
Probably do some sort of Jund list, like a sneak attack list.
Oh yeah.
I would do sneak attack, and I'd play the Avatar. When it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. I'd play Terror of the Peaks. I'd go all out. I'd play the 6 mana 11/10 freaking upkeep, sack a creature, trample, whatever. Because now I got 22 power on the board for 6 mana.
I'm thinking you then proceed to put a bunch of fling effects at people.
Sure.
Galta works less well because you make a token unless you have a way to instant speed
death trigger or whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Well. Okay. I kind of.
Horde Worm is a really cool card where it's you play it or the worms where they die and they make more things. That would be kind of cool. The Reef Worm, right? And Simic, that would be really cool. Or Triplicate Titan, all that silliness, It just or Battlesphere if we're playing in 2012,
Phyrexian Trinisform, that sort of stuff. Okay, yeah. I'll be honest, of those options, the frog one sounds coolest.
It'd be really fun because you can play Clement and you can just go ham with your frogs and they tap for mana now because it doesn't matter that their tokens are just frogs and there's not any good frogs yet, and I've been
Well,
really thinking about this like pretty hard about like there are good frogs out there, but like I want to play like
this
silliness. Like
this plus Pawn Profit, and then
yeah,
the Dowerport Mage. Dowerport Mage taps, return Pawn Profit to your hand. So
yeah.
you're like when you play it, you cast Pawn Profit for Simic. Now you're making a second copy. Draw 2 cards. Immediately return it to your hand. Draw another one. And if you have a second Dowerport Mage because you're dual nature, I'm living the frog life right now.
How about Dream Do Entrancer, right?
Yeah.
3/4 with reach when enters, tap up the one target creature and put 3 stun counters on it. If you control it, draw 2 cards. You can just tap the token copy that you made from dual nature.
Okay, I'm in. We're building frogs. Okay.
Hey man.
We'll need to frog build up do a show where we do a frog deck and incorporate this nonsense because I think that's where I would go with this. The Marin list just makes me feel sad. I feel infinite sadness, but I like this with the froggies. I think that'd be fun.
Yep. And then the last card that you got.
This card I think is actually rather funny because I was digging through a box. Actually, literally right here. There it is, right there in front of me. There it is, right there. So this is a single blue for the spell Riptide, which is an instant. All blue creatures become tapped. I think that I like a card that is simple text, but has rather significant implications. So, Pete, am I clearly losing my mind? Is Riptide bad?
Let's see. So, Riptide, funny enough, a card I'm going to feature next week. It combos with that card, but we'll save that card for another time.
Okay.
This card, I don't know what to feel about this card because it's so like yes, you could split up a board and you could tap your stuff and draw some cards like the enchantment from Ravnica that says whenever you tap a creature without flying, you get to draw a card.
Verity Circle?
Yeah, yes. Or like you could play like Timon and Rhoda and make Timon and Rhoda and make Rhoda super chunky. But like at the same time, I'm just not really like I guess you could fog a combat step with this, but even so.
Or I could make somebody just get caught, put their pants down.
You know what? You could use that that card from MKM, the one that says tapped creatures you control have hexproof. I'm talking about. You could like flash that in for 2. You don't have to pay X, and you could play this card, Lost in the Maze. You could play this card as a way to protect your whole board for a turn, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I this is very linear. I feel like I wouldn't bother playing this. It is interesting. I just don't think it's necessarily good. I think it's kind of garbage.
I'm thinking Hilda wants this like nobody's business. Hilda, Verity Circle, you're saying things that all like are music to my ears. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do all the things and make people tap all their things and make them feel sadness, and I'm going to giggle immensely on the other side of the table, and people are going to hate me for it. So I'm excited. I think I want to play Riptide. I'm going to be putting it somewhere, putting it in a deck, and putting it to good use. I hope I get to tap your whole board down there, Pete. So you can't attack, and then let Mason clean up the mess.
So listen to this, Hilda. There's only 3 decks that run this card in Hilda.
Really?
Only 3. But the really cool one that I saw was Lawan Cephalid Empress. When it comes into play, return all blue creatures your opponents control to their owner's hands, and your opponents can't play blue creature spells. What a meme. What a meme card. And Blind Seer. Blind Seer is, change the color of things for 2 minutes. Yeah. That one has 97 decks, but like nobody else is. There's some interesting stuff here, but like I don't see it with the rest of these cards.
Anyway, all right. Maybe I'm the only one living in my own fantasy land tonight, but I think I like it. I'm going to try it out.
Yeah. Yeah, give it a shot and I'll laugh at you.
All right.
Yeah.
This last one, what do we got here? What is this thing? What am I looking at?
Yeah, so the last card is Soul Collector. So it's 3 colorless, 2 black, it's a vampire, flying. Whenever a creature dealt damage by Soul Collector this turn dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control and it has a morph cost of 3 black pips. So, Bruce, what do you think?
Well, okay, so I'm going to date myself here. So this is the text on it is the similar text to Krovikin Vampire. Not exactly, but it's similar. And Krovikin Vampire was bad. Now, this has definitely been upgraded. This is from Scourge. So it is now, instead of being a 3-3, like Krovikin Vampire was, this is a 3-4. That extra toughness helps. And it flies. And the morph, I guess, is value. Now, I'm thinking with this, I like that middle line, that middle text there. When a creature is dealt damage by Soul Collector this turn, is put into a graveyard. Return it to play under your control. I want to get things dead with Soul Collector and reap the values of that. And I'm not sure how to do that because this creature doesn't really tussle real well with Commander. Because Commander cards tend to be either really, really small because they're value creatures or really, really big. This falls in the middle and is kind of in that uncomfortable like middle stage. So we need to, if I'm going to use a middle text, I need to do something other than just get it into combat because it's going to not fare well in combat. That seems tricky to me, but I think it's like a fun challenge to build around.
I think this card serves its purpose as like a cool way to leverage like other evergreen abilities, like give it death touch and then have it ping a creature, or
yeah,
you do something where like you make it so all the creatures your opponents control have to block it, and you're able to deal enough damage somehow, kill a bunch of things, or there's a few spells out there that allow a creature to deal damage equal to its power or toughness to each other creature. Chandra's Ignition, right?
Right. Chandra's Ignition in this seems fun. That seems like I was something I really want to do.
I like that you can use it as like a fight target. Like you could play a fight spell and kill something.
Yeah.
And then bring it back. You could ambush something, like if you morph it and then somebody doesn't realize and they swing with something, and you flip it up and it turns up and it blocks and it kills it. That feels good.
If a team blocks like a double block on something, like you would still get the triggers. So like, I mean, like everything that we're talking about is like putting it into like Jund colors, which I think is cool. I like Jund as a combination of where to put this. Is this just like stealing someone else's stuff but with extra steps?
I feel like because there's just other cards that do something like this better.
Do this and like. So, are we just making this hard on us, making ourselves do work?
Weirdly enough, like there's this reanimation effect in Rakdos. It's 5 colorless, red and black. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That creature deals damage equal to its power to each other creature. So you could play like Whip of Erebos. You could bin this card early and then reanimate it and kill literally everything and then take everything back. That seems really cool. I sort of like steel sacrifice sort of effect. I don't know. I'm kind of going on a limb here because there's really not that many options that are playable, I think.
I just feel like
there's like maybe 2 or 3 cards that actually show-stopping surprise is neat. It's from Murders of Karloff Commander. It's 5 mana instant. Choose target creature control. Turn it face up if it's face down. Then it deals damage equal to its power to each other creature. That's pretty cool. That's like a sneaky way to like blow up a board. But again, you have to pump it up somehow. You got to make it big, which it's not too hard nowadays to do. But I'm curious to see if people are not. I mean, EDH rec data says vampire tribal and that's it. But I'm not a big fan of that. You know?
No, I feel that's really basic. Or because of the morph, it goes in like the Kadena morph deck, which I think is like grossly underusing it as a creature. Like it's just playing it as more because it says morph. We play it in a deck. I'm like, that doesn't seem that interesting, really. I don't know. Like the card's neat. That's a neat line of text on a card. I just feel like it's a lot of extra steps when we can do this cheaper or more efficiently or better in doing other things.
Yeah, you could just play like any sort of sacrifice, take it from them effect. You could play the old chainer, and just steal it from their graveyard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
or like heaven forbid you do the Turgid thing. Like you can just do you just do it better. Like
you
it's
just be that person. Yeah, sure.
You could be that the magical a-hole at the table and like steal the cards with like the Turgid. So I think the card is neat. I don't think it's good.
Yeah, if its stats were a little bit better for its cost, because it really costs like 6 mana to kind of get this thing to do something.
Yeah.
Again, I there's definitely, I'm sure there's ways to, you know what, this with the illusion card, the 6 mana, it's hold on.
Make a copy every turn?
No, it's when a creature is the target of a spell or an ability, they sacrifice it.
Oh, yes.
Oh, dismiss into dream?
Right, yes.
Not that that ability would stack, but there's a chance that you could have it like block with like dismiss into dream on the battlefield and then target it somehow and make it die before it like deals all the damage to it. But again, that's a fool's dream. That's like a weird.
Yeah, that feels like a lot of extra work to set that up that you're never really going to want to do for the payoff. The payoff's just not there in most cases. Like every once in a while, you'll bag the really good creature with this and it'll be like, yeah, I did it. But then you're like, well, I also did a lot of nothing in the meantime. So you maybe just be dead. So again, cool card. I don't think it's very good. I probably won't play it. If I do, I'm clearly have lost my mind. But maybe I'll put it in like some sort of deck with the Riptide and see how much other dumbness I can cause.
Just a meme deck, sure.
Yeah, I mean there's a time and place for that. So
yeah.
Anyway, all right.
I think that about wraps it up for this week. If you like what you're hearing, you can find us on in our show notes. We got our social media and all that. And if you want any cards featured, please hit us up through email, social media. We love to feature people's cards that they tell us that they've used to great effect. So,
absolutely.
Take care, everybody.
We love those sorts of stories. Love the stories. All right, folks. Thanks very much. Talk to you soon. Catch you later.